Let's talk about how you can be more concise in your writing. And I'm going to give some fairly practical and specific advice about what to look out for. The first thing to watch out for is what we might call overlapping sentences. So overlap in your sentences. And you can see here that the second sentence starts out by simply summarizing and repeating the first sentence. So we read, they should not have backed their own governments because wars between nations benefit capitalist owners. And all of this up to because, all of this repeats the first part. Lenin believed that European socialists should not have supported World War I. What we can do is we can simply scratch this all out and start our sentence with wars and leave it implied that we're continuing the thought from the previous sentence. That's a good one to watch out for because it's quite common, but it's not the case that overlap is always wrong. When you're writing for conciseness, you have to make a decision. Sometimes more words is better because it creates a sense of style and it can be more impressive, allows you to flesh out your ideas. So just because you use more words is not necessarily a bad thing. The second one here, something else to watch out for, is what we might call a double. And a double is a couple of words working together as a pair or a team. This is very frequent in people's writing, that they use a couple of words where they could just use one, and they do it because it gives a certain weightiness to their writing. But often they're simply using synonyms, and you can do with one. In this sentence we read, if you are bitten by a Lone Star tick, you may become allergic to red meat. It's kind of interesting, especially if you're a vegetarian, I suppose. Maybe you should start sharing or spreading Lone Star ticks. We read, the tick passes on a sugar molecule called alpha-gal. Sounds kind of friendly. That may affect and change your immune system. At present, there is no cure or remedy. We have two doubles. We have affect and change and cure or remedy. And when you come across these doubles, you have to decide whether you like them or not. They're not necessarily bad, but you could easily just use one word in each case. So you could say change your immune system. Change is more specific than affect. And you could pick cure, let's say, or pick a word that's not a synonym. The third one here simply uses a bunch of expressions that are wordy. And sometimes if an instructor is marking your writing, he or she may use the word verbose. So verbose is just a fancy way of saying wordy, perhaps somewhat ironic. And there are lots of things that can make your writing wordy. We start by using a longer kind of expression that where you could substitute a single word. So we say due to the fact that, and we could simply say because, or since. Because you are well and truly over the limit, I'm going to have to impound your car. Watch out also for pat phrases like well and truly, not really necessary in writing. And then the last thing here is to watch out for wordy verb phrases. So this one says, I am going to have to. That's a lot of verbs, and you can simply say, I have to. Yeah, so we'll get rid of that. So then all that's left is because you are over the limit, I have to impound your car. It's going to take you a little bit sometimes to get to this level where you can see these mistakes, but I would encourage you to really pay attention to any way in which you can make your writing more concise. Not because you always have to, but because it gives you a certain ability and a certain power to change your writing and to be more persuasive and more effective. The next one has to do with hyperbole, so exaggeration. Okay, and it's even a sentence that talks about exaggeration. This one says, he very much exaggerated when he said that the planet is completely doomed. Watch out for words like very or completely. They're very strong words, and you can often do without. So we could say he exaggerated when he said that the planet is doomed. And the sentence reads just fine without the exaggeration. And then the last one here has to do with simple redundancy. So redundancy. And you can see that all of these categories, all of these aspects of conciseness overlap. But we have a bunch of phrases here that are not necessary. And we read, I really appreciated that you presented a distinctly different perspective. We can get rid of really. That's a common one we use in speech to affirm what we're saying, but in writing it's often not necessary. Distinctly different, this is also one of these pad phrases that people use, but distinctly here is quite redundant, right? If it is different, it's going to be distinct. And now we're left with, I appreciated that you presented a different perspective. We can still make this shorter if we want to, and we could say, I appreciated your perspective, right? That's all we would have to say, and that would be probably as concise as we could make it. So those are a few ways to think about conciseness, and watch out for doubles and verbose writing, hyperbole, redundancy, and overlap. And if you do these things, then I can guarantee you that your writing will definitely be more concise and hopefully more powerful.